Hello everyone, and welcome back to Spy Ward Story. Before we dive into today's tale, a quick disclaimer. This story is based on historical events, but some names and scenes have been fictionalized for dramatic and storytelling purposes. Today, we are about to explore the world of MI6's first master of disguise, known in history as the man in the bowler hat. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and comment below where you are watching from. London in the early 1930s was a city of fog and shadow. The streets were cloaked in mist, gas lamps flickered along the alleys, and a sense of quiet unease settled over the city each evening. Among the throngs of ordinary Londoners walked one man whose presence would go largely unnoticed by the public, yet whose actions would shape the very foundations of Britain's fledgling intelligence network. Known only for his unassuming bowler hat and long overcoat, he was about to demonstrate the art of disguise unlike anyone before him. The man's first missions were humble. He would shadow courier routes, observe known enemy sympathizers, and gather intelligence in plain sight. On one such mission, he posed as a street vendor near the Thames. The river's fog masked his movements, and passers-by paid no attention as he discreetly recorded coded messages slipped into the hands of unsuspecting agents. Each step was calculated, each gesture precise. Even the slightest misstep could compromise years of MI6's planning. In the heart of London, whispers of political unrest and foreign spies filtered through the city's networks. MI6, still in its infancy, recognized that conventional surveillance could no longer suffice. They needed an operative who could vanish into crowds, assume multiple identities, and extract secrets without leaving a trace. The bowler hat was the answer. On a particularly chilly night, he was dispatched to a clandestine meeting in Soho. Enemy agents had arranged a covert exchange of information, and the success of Britain's intelligence operation depended entirely on observation. Donning the guise of a refined merchant, he entered the dimly lit building. The scent of damp wood and ink hung in the air. He carefully noted the gestures, the whispers, the subtle passing of envelopes. Minutes stretched into hours as the meeting progressed, each second weighted with tension. When the exchange concluded, he slipped out unnoticed, blending seamlessly with the foggy London streets. Back at headquarters, his reports revealed the existence of a hidden network of informants, a discovery that would prove crucial in the coming years. It was this ability to move unseen, to witness and record without interference, that began to cement his reputation as MI6's first true master of disguise. Not every mission went without peril. On one occasion, he was trailed by an enemy operative who had begun to suspect his presence. Navigating the narrow alleys and shadowed courtyards, he relied on his mastery of movement and misdirection. He changed his posture, altered his gait, even switched a hat mid-walk to throw off the pursuer. By the time he reached the safety of a secluded safe house, the tale had lost him completely. MI6 officers later noted that such ingenuity and presence of mind were unprecedented in the agency's early history. The bowler hat's work extended beyond physical disguise. He became an expert in reading subtle signals, understanding coded gestures, and predicting enemy behavior. The city itself became a chessboard, each street a square, each passerby a potential piece in the grand game of espionage. His reports shaped operational strategies and informed MI6's first covert operations across Europe. As dawn broke over the foggy skyline, he removed the familiar bowler hat, folding it neatly under his arm. The city awoke, unaware that in its midst a shadow had moved silently, gathering secrets, preventing disasters, and quietly building the foundation of Britain's global intelligence force. This was just the beginning of a career that would define the clandestine art of disguise for decades to come. Remember, if you enjoyed this story, make sure to like the video, subscribe to Spy Ward Story, and share your thoughts in the comments. Every story we bring you is part of a larger journey into the hidden world of spies, secrets, and shadows. The city of London was waking to another gray morning, the fog clinging stubbornly to the rooftops and cobblestone streets. But for the man known only by his bowler hat, the day had already begun. MI6 had assigned him a task that required more than stealth, it required transformation. Today, he would not simply observe, he would become someone else entirely. In a small, dimly lit room above a nondescript bakery, he prepared for his mission. Carefully, he adjusted his coat, switched his hat, and applied subtle changes to his appearance. A slight shift in posture, a change in voice tone, a meticulous adjustment of his hairline, these were the tools of his craft. Every detail mattered. Every nuance could determine success or failure. He left the room and merged with the morning crowd. Street vendors shouted their wares. Children darted between pedestrians, and the clatter of horse-drawn carts filled the air. Yet none of them noticed the man who was, at that moment, not himself. To an outsider, he was an ordinary city clerk. But MI6 officers knew the truth. He was the first operative to master the art of living in disguise. His target was a courier believed to be delivering critical intelligence to an unknown foreign agent. Following from a discreet distance, he shadowed the man through narrow alleys and crowded marketplaces. At times, he slowed his pace, pretending to tie his shoe or examine a shop window, blending seamlessly into the urban rhythm. Minutes stretched into tense hours. Every corner held potential danger, every passerby a possible observer. But his meticulous preparation allowed him to remain invisible, even under scrutiny. He noted the courier's behavior, memorized faces, and captured details that would otherwise have gone unnoticed. When the courier finally disappeared into the shadow of a private club, the man in the bowler hat was already planning his next move. That evening, in the quiet of his temporary safe house, he reconstructed the day's events in careful detail. The sketches of faces, the sequence of movements, the subtle signals exchanged, all were documented with precision. Each report added a new layer to MI6's understanding of the enemy's network. It was not just information he collected, it was insight, strategy, and foresight rolled into one invisible performance. But mastery of disguise was never without peril. On the same day, a sharp-eyed operative from the opposing side had begun to notice inconsistencies: a hat slightly tilted differently, a gait that didn't match the usual pattern. In a heart-pounding sequence, the man in the bowler hat executed a series of rapid changes. He shifted his coat, altered his route, and even changed his accent mid-conversation with a street vendor. Within minutes, the pursuer was lost, left wandering aimlessly in the foggy streets of London. Each successful mission reinforced his legend within MI6. Word spread quietly among officers. This operative was unlike any before him. Not only could he gather intelligence, but he could also do so while remaining undetectable, transforming seamlessly into the very environment he inhabited. London itself became his stage, and every citizen a background character in his unfolding story of espionage. The night drew in, and the city lights glimmered through the mist. Safe in the shadows, the man removed the carefully adjusted coat and hat, revealing a face that would, tomorrow, assume yet another identity. This was the power of disguise, not to hide from the world entirely, but to walk among it unseen, influencing events from the margins. As the first stars began to pierce the London sky, MI6's agents would later recall this day as the moment when the agency gained its first operative capable of true transformation. The man in the bowler hat had not only completed his mission, but had also redefined the boundaries of espionage, proving that perception itself could be the deadliest weapon in intelligence work. Every story has its shadows, and in these shadows, the seeds of Britain's intelligence empire were quietly taking root. For the man in the bowler hat, the day ended as it had begun unnoticed, as unremarkable to the public, yet monumental to those who understood the unseen game of spies. The fog over London thickened as night fell, swallowing the city's streets in a dense gray curtain. For most citizens, the evening's chill meant retreating indoors, lighting fireplaces, and shutting doors against the creeping damp. But for the man in the bowler hat, this was when the real work began. MI6 had received intelligence about a clandestine meeting, silent exchange of information between foreign agents deep within the city. The mission was clear: infiltrate, observe, and extract as much detail as possible without ever being seen. He moved through the narrow alleys with deliberate precision. Every footstep was measured, every glance calculated. The city, cloaked in mist, became both shield and stage. Gas lamps flickered intermittently, casting long shadows across brick walls. He paused at intersections, studying the movement of passersby, calculating patterns, and noting where the shadows would fall. This was espionage at its most delicate, a dance of invisibility performed in real time, under the gaze of thousands who remained oblivious. His target was a small townhouse in the West End, known to MI6 through a network of informants. Reports indicated that enemy operatives would be meeting inside, discussing routes, codes, and contacts across Europe. To approach undetected, he altered his appearance subtly yet strategically. A slight change in the tilt of his hat, a slower gait, and a confident posture allowed him to blend into the evening crowd, a ghost among spectators. Reaching the townhouse, he observed from a shadowed corner, noting guards, entries, and exits. The meeting commenced inside, faint murmurs drifting through partially opened windows. Using binoculars and a series of covert signals he had devised himself, he recorded gestures, facial expressions, and subtle interactions that would have escaped even the keenest ordinary eye. Every signal, every whispered phrase, was meticulously logged in his mind and later transcribed for MI6's archives. As the meeting progressed, tension mounted. One of the operatives approached the window, and the man in the bowler hat froze, heart pounding, breath measured. Every muscle in his body tensed, yet he remained a silent shadow, perfectly still against the foggy backdrop. Minutes stretched into an eternity, yet he remained undetected. This was the essence of his skill: patience, observation, and an uncanny ability to merge with the environment. When the meeting concluded, the operatives departed one by one, unaware of the silent observer in the shadows. He followed from a distance, noting patterns, routes, and meeting points for future reference. A single slip, a stray glance, or a poorly timed step could have exposed him. But every movement was executed with precision. By the time he returned to his safe house, he had gathered enough intelligence to map an entire web of enemy operations spanning the city. Back at headquarters, his report astonished MI6 leadership. Details that seemed impossible to obtain without direct confrontation had been captured with almost eerie thoroughness. Every gesture, every subtle signal, every code exchanged in whispered conversation was now part of MI6's growing understanding of the foreign spy network. The man in the bowler hat had not just observed, he had penetrated the invisible layers of espionage, leaving no trace of his presence. Yet, the mission was not without danger. On his way back through the fogged streets, he sensed a presence of figure moving against the natural flow of pedestrians, eyes scanning, intent clear. Using his mastery of misdirection, he ducked into an alley, switched his coat, adjusted his hat, and altered his gait. Within moments, the tail was gone, and the city reclaimed its quiet anonymity. Such close calls became routine for him. Yet each one honed his instincts and deepened his legend within MI6, as dawn threatened to break over the London skyline. The man removed the familiar bowler hat and folded it carefully under his arm. Another mission concluded successfully, yet he remained invisible to the world he served. In the silent streets, he was merely a shadow, yet the information he carried, the intelligence he had gathered, would shape the strategies and victories of Britain's Secret Service for years to come. MI6 officers often marveled at his work, understanding that it was not only his skill in disguise, but also his unwavering patience, strategic mind, and intuition that made him a living instrument of espionage. Each silent infiltration, each carefully executed observation reinforced the agency's belief that the bowler hat had redefined the very concept of covert operations. The streets of London had grown colder as the late autumn fog thickened. curling through alleys and across the Thames with an almost sentient intent. For most, the city was merely a collection of shadowed streets and shuttered windows. But for the man in the bowler hat, it was a living labyrinthine arena where danger could appear from any corner and secrets floated invisibly through the mist. Tonight, MI6 had entrusted him with a mission fraught with greater peril than any before. Intercepting a communication network the enemy believed was impenetrable. He moved silently through the familiar streets, his figure barely more than a silhouette against the dim glow of gas lamps. Each step was measured, each pause intentional. The city seemed to watch him in return, and he had learned to listen to the subtle language of shadows, the creak of a gate, the distant echo of footsteps, the faint tapping that could signify a coded signal. It was in these quiet whispers of the city that he found the pulse of espionage. His objective lay in a narrow street in Whitechapel, where reports suggested a courier would deliver a series of coded messages to foreign operatives. He crouched behind a corner, eyes scanning every detail, ears attuned to even the slightest anomaly. A slight rustle, a hurried footstep, a muffled cough each became a potential signal, a clue to unravel the clandestine operation. Moments later, a figure emerged, moving swiftly and deliberately, carrying a small satchel. The man in the bowler hat followed at a careful distance, merging seamlessly with pedestrians and shadows. At times, he paused to adjust his coat, to shift his gait, or to alter his posture, blending with the rhythm of the crowd. The tension was almost tangible. One misstep could alert the courier, or worse, expose him to an enemy agent watching from a hidden vantage point. As the courier entered a dimly lit warehouse, the man in the bowler hat found a vantage point in an adjacent building. From there, he observed the intricate exchange of messages, slips of paper, subtle hand gestures, and coded nods that would have been indecipherable to anyone untrained. With practiced precision, he memorized every signal, every pattern, committing them to memory for MI6's analysis. It was a ballet of secrecy, each movement choreographed to perfection, and he was both audience and invisible participant. The night deepened, and danger increased. A shadow detached itself from the darkness, a vigilant operative who had begun to suspect the presence of an observer. The chase became a game of instinct and deception. Through narrow alleys and winding passages, the man in the bowler hat twisted, turned, and vanished into the urban tapestry. He switched his hat mid-stride, altered his accent in a whispered conversation with a street vendor, and merged with a passing group of workmen. By the time the pursuer realized the trail was lost, he was gone, leaving only the fog and silence in his wake. The intelligence gathered that night was invaluable. Not only had he intercepted critical information, but he had also mapped the enemy's signaling system, revealing a network that had remained hidden for months. MI6 analysts later described it as a breakthrough in operational understanding, a triumph of subtle observation over brute force. As dawn began to touch the city skyline, casting muted light over wet cobblestones, the man in the bowler hat retreated to his safe house. The night had been long, each moment fraught with risk, yet every step had been executed flawlessly. In those quiet hours, he cataloged every detail, every nuance of the signals he had observed, ensuring that MI6 would possess knowledge previously thought unattainable. For the man in the bowler hat, every mission was a lesson in patience, precision, and perception. The city, its hidden corners, and the shadows themselves had become his allies, guiding him through peril and secrecy alike. MI6's early history was being shaped not by overt action, but by the quiet mastery of one man who had learned to move undetected, to hear what others could not, and to see what was invisible. Even as London stirred awake, oblivious to the night's clandestine events, one truth remained. The man in the bowler hat had not only survived close calls and intercepted hidden signals, he had set the standard for an entirely new art of intelligence gathering. His legend, though invisible to the public eye, was now etched into the very fabric of MI6. The fog that had long cloaked London's streets now seemed almost alive, twisting around corners and curling over rooftops as if it were a silent guardian of secrets. For most Londoners, it was merely a nuisance, dampening the morning air and shrouding familiar streets. But for the man in the bowler hat, it was an Elia cover for movement, observation, and subtle intervention. Tonight, MI6 had entrusted him with a mission that demanded not only stealth but audacity: uncover a plot that threatened British interests across Europe. He walked through the deserted streets with deliberate precision. Every step, every pause, was part of an intricate choreography honed through years of discipline. The city itself seemed to yield to his presence, shadows bending to conceal him, alleyways opening as paths of silent passage. His mission was clear: infiltrate a network of operatives coordinating in London and extract information that could prevent disaster. His first objective was a small cafe in the West End, known to MI6 as a hub for foreign intelligence contacts. The night was tense. Even the smallest sound, the creak of a sign, the distant echo of footsteps could betray his presence. He paused at a corner, observing the patterns of the city, reading the silent cues that indicated who was ordinary and who carried secrets. Every detail was crucial, every observation a potential key to unraveling the web he sought to expose. Inside the cafe, men and women moved with quiet intent. Coded gestures, subtle glances, and careful exchanges of documents occurred in plain sight. To anyone else, it was merely an evening scene in a London cafe. To him, it was a map of hidden alliances, a language of espionage he had learned to interpret with uncanny precision. He noted the signals, recorded movements, and committed details to memory with meticulous care. Suddenly, a shadow detached itself from the background of a foreign agent who had become suspicious of an unseen observer. The man in the bowler hat felt the spike of danger but remained calm. With practiced skill, he altered his path, changed his accent in a fleeting conversation with a waiter, and adjusted his posture in a way that erased any trace of his identity. Within moments, the threat had passed, leaving him free to continue his observation. The intelligence he gathered that night was unprecedented. He tracked every operative, mapped their routes, and intercepted subtle exchanges that had previously gone unnoticed. By dawn, he had compiled a complete picture of the network's operations, revealing vulnerabilities that MI6 could exploit to neutralize threats. The success of this mission marked a turning point not only in his career, but in the agency's approach to covert operations. As he exited the cafe, the city still shrouded in fog, he reflected on the delicate balance of risk and precision. Each decision, each maneuver had been executed with care, and the rewards were monumental. MI6 had gained insight into a network that could have eluded discovery for months, perhaps years, if not for his mastery of observation, disguise, and strategic patience. His work was not merely the gathering of information, it was an art form. London had become a canvas, every street a brushstroke, every shadow a tool. He moved like a phantom through the urban landscape, invisible yet profoundly influential. Each success strengthened MI6's confidence in his abilities, confirming that the man in the bowler hat was not merely an operative but a master of espionage itself. By the time the first light of morning pierced the London fog, he had returned to his safe house. The mission was complete, a silent triumph, executed without detection. The bowler hat had once again proven that subtlety, precision, and mastery of disguise could achieve what brute force never could. His legacy, though hidden from the public eye, is being written with every careful step, every unseen observation, every whispered secret captured in the shadows of London's streets. For MI6, this night was more than a mission. It was a testament to the emergence of a new kind of intelligence operative, one whose skill, patience, and ingenuity would set the standard for decades to come. And for the man in the bowler hat, it was another chapter in a story that would shape the very nature of espionage in Britain, a story that had only just begun. The city of London had changed little since the early days of the bowler hat, yet the shadows that once concealed secrets had grown deeper, more complex. For the man in the bowler hat, now recognized within MI6 as a pioneer of covert operations. Every street, every alleyway, every flickering gas lamp held memories of missions accomplished and dangers narrowly avoided. His career had spanned years, each operation more intricate than the last. Yet his methods remained rooted in a principle as simple as it was powerful: observation, patience, and complete mastery of disguise. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the rooftops and the Thames shimmered with muted reflections, he prepared for one final reconnaissance. Though the missions had grown increasingly strategic, shaping international intelligence, thwarting plots, and intercepting communications, the thrill of being unseen. The challenge of infiltrating hostile networks remained ever compelling. Tonight, he would review a series of signals intercepted over the past months, mapping patterns that had once seemed indecipherable. He moved through familiar streets with fluid ease. London had become a second skin. He knew every cobblestone, every shadow, every route that could conceal him from prying eyes. Each step was deliberate, each pause meaningful. Observing the quiet rhythm of the city, he noted subtle shifts: an unfamiliar figure near a warehouse, a courier moving at an unusual pace, a glint of light from a window that might indicate a secret meeting. The world of espionage demanded constant vigilance. Even in quiet moments, danger lingered. In a secluded room overlooking the city, he reconstructed events, gestures, and patterns, ensuring that no detail, however small, would be lost. The intelligence gathered over years formed a tapestry of inside-immune networks charted, routes exposed, hidden communications revealed. Each discovery reinforced MI6's confidence in their strategies, proving that careful observation and subtle intervention could yield results unmatched by force or aggression. His legacy was not only in the information he had secured, but in the techniques he had perfected. The art of disguise, once rudimentary, had become a sophisticated science under his guidance. Agents learned to move unseen, to read signals, to vanish and reappear in the most unexpected ways. The principles he established: the silent infiltration, the patient observation, the careful cataloging of gestures, would guide MI6 operations for decades. Yet the man in the bowler hat understood that true mastery came not from gadgets or technology, but from human intuition. He had learned to anticipate behavior, to recognize subtle tells, and to adapt instantaneously to unpredictable circumstances. Each mission was a test of mind as much as skill, a game played in the shadows where one misstep could unravel months of planning. And yet, he succeeded time and again, leaving only traces in reports, memories in the minds of fellow agents, and legends whispered within the agency. As the night deepened, he reflected on the countless close calls, the agents who had nearly detected him, the messages intercepted at the last second, the signals decoded before they could be delivered. Every moment had contributed to a growing expertise, a mastery of espionage that transcended ordinary intelligence work. The bowler hat, simple and unassuming, had become a symbol of invisible influence, a testament to subtlety, patience, and precision. The final mission of the evening concluded without incident. The city slept, unaware of the intricate web of intelligence woven silently in its midst. The man in the bowler hat removed his coat, set down his hat, and allowed himself a rare moment of reflection. London's streets, once a theater of shadows and danger, had become a canvas upon which his legacy was painted. MI6 had gained not just information, but an enduring methodology, a blueprint for intelligence operations that would shape Britain's security for generations. Turning to the audience, he would later narrate, if ever asked, that the most potent tool in espionage was not violence or force, but the quiet mastery of observation and the subtle art of becoming invisible. And so, the legend of the bowler hat endured not as a public spectacle, but as a silent influence, a guiding presence in the hidden corridors of power. As we conclude this story today, remember, every shadow carries a secret, and every secret has its guardian. The man in the bowler hat showed that even in the darkest corners, subtlety and skill could illuminate the path to triumph. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like this video, subscribe to Spyward Story, and comment below where you are watching from. Every tale we share opens a window into the hidden world of spies, secrets, and shadows. Stay tuned for more stories, and remember, history often moves in silence, but its effects are profound.